we've got an entirely new game that I would like to introduce for this year and years to come. Tentatively, we're going to call this College Football Survivor Bubble in lieu of a better name, and I'm open to a better name. But so far, I'm just ready to give you the concept. And you can play this with your buddies. You probably need 3 or more. We're probably going to do it as a staff. You can do it anywhere. But you need to get people who are all in on college football. So some of you do betting pools. Some of you do fantasy football. I would suggest that this would be something you should strongly consider, but you only need to find the folks who claim to know this sport. And you only need to find the folks in your social circle or in the office or wherever who really will pay up if they lose on a bet because of the conditions of the game, as I'm about to explain them to you. So it's very, very simple on the surface. What we are going to do, and I'm about to start doing my version of it on the show tonight, what you want to do, choose your group. Let's say you got 5 buddies. So you plus 5 equals 6. You got 6 buddies. You choose the group. Each of you build your college football national championship bubble. Very simple concept. All I'm asking you to do is create a bubble and put every team you think could win the national championship this year in that bubble. Your goal is to make your bubble as small as possible while making sure you don't exclude any team that could win the national championship. Because if you get to the finish line and the national champion is outside your bubble, terrible, terrible things are going to happen to you. Terrible. You get to decide how terrible. So you build your bubble. Your entire goal is to finish with the smallest bubble possible with the national champ in your bubble. You could have 11 teams in there. You could have 17 teams in there if that's how big the bubble needs to be for you to be comfortable. So you define what the prize is. Ideally, we're just talking about a lot of money. And whoever finishes with the smallest bubble that has the national champ in their bubble, that's your winner. That's pretty straightforward. You win the cash. Could be $10, could be $10 million. I don't know how you guys roll. Any bubbles that are popped, meaning any bubble where the national champ is outside of your bubble, that equals a loser. And the loser, in our opinion, should suffer extremely dire consequences. Now, when I originally floated this concept to Jesse, it was death. That was our premise. That was our starting point. We deliberated, I would say a good hour or two, and we decided probably people shouldn't have to die here, but you should have to get really, really up close. You should have to skirt it. My biggest fear is lightning. So my bet would be stand outside during a thunderstorm. Jesse, somehow, as a full-grown adult male, is still scared of clowns. So, I don't know what the punishment would be there, but it needs to be something you're going to feel. It needs to be something more so than just, oh, ha, ha, ha. Look, he had to eat X amount of food in an hour. And that's playhouse stuff. We need people suffering, at least emotionally. We need people suffering. So here's the deal. All right, let's say you got 6 people in this group. Number 1 wins the prize and wins all the prize money. Number 2, number 3, number 4, you don't win anything, but at least you don't die, or the equivalent of that, whatever terms you guys agree upon. But you may ask yourself, oh, I think I found a loophole, didn't I? Why don't I just put 50 teams in my bubble? Yeah, I may not win the money, but at least I won't lose. At least I won't suffer the consequences. Well, here is the catch. If there are popped bubbles in the group, hey, doesn't matter if you finish last as long as your bubble's not popped. If nobody's bubble pops, then whoever's number 6 ends up being the one that suffers the predetermined consequence. So most likely, you're going to have a year where a Georgia wins the national title or Ohio State wins the national title. Well, obviously, everyone would have had them in their bubble. So no one's bubble will have popped. But someone's going to have a bubble full of 11 teams, and someone's going to have 13 and 17. Someone's going to be in last place. They had 21 teams in their bubble. That dude right there suffers the consequences. So the question as we start the show tonight, you don't have to answer it until August, really, although I'm going to start the process tonight. How big would your bubble be? How many teams theoretically could win the national championship this year to the point where you put all of the ones in there that you think maybe a 3% chance of winning it? So you got no-brainers, as far as I could tell. I mean, if you pull up the odds right now at FanDuel to win the national championship, obviously you got some no-brainers. So Notre Dame's going to be in everyone's bubble, and I want to remind everyone, please understand the logic here. This is not some prediction. This is not like I'm saying Notre Dame's going to win it, and if they don't, I was wrong. This is, I need to put everybody in that bubble that it takes to make me feel safe about going to sleep tonight. So Notre Dame's in there. Ohio State's in there. Texas, Indiana, Oregon, Georgia, Texas Tech, I think should be in there. Remember the parameters here. Miami's in there. LSU, A&M, Bama, Oklahoma. Those are teams really just based on roster talent alone, you cannot be excluding. Hey, do me one favor right here. Look down. Are you subscribed to the channel? If you are, thank you. If you're not, please click subscribe. It helps us keep the show free and free of corporate interference. All right, that's it for me. Back to the clip. So that's the no-brainer list. Now, I think after that, there's another group of teams that are quickly going to go in, but I would call those at least your brief internal debate type qualifiers, where, you start to think, all right, now, I can't just put everybody in here. USC. You have the whole Lincoln Riley conundrum. Can he or can't he? Are they tough enough? Are they going to get over the hump? But the thing about it is USC this year will have their best roster they've had under Riley. It's USC. You can't leave them out of your bubble. So they'd go in. Michigan would go in. A team like Ole Miss. I don't know, because like Trinidad Chambliss to me is the divider, and I don't know what in the world's going to happen in the court system, but if he were playing, they'd have to be in. If he's not going to be on the roster, as of now he's not, maybe they're not in this category. Maybe they're a little bit further down the ladder. Even a team like Florida, a team that was bad record-wise last year, you've got to be careful of the roster talent. Because if all the stars were to align with that kind of team, you got to be really, really weary of the kind of run they could make. I'll put it another way. Florida's going to have way worse odds to win a national title or maybe even to make the playoff than many of the G5 teams. But if Florida got in the playoff, they'd be an infinitely bigger threat to win it than a G5 team would. Your best G5 teams aren't winning the title. Like, I would have no G5 team in my bubble. And conversely, I'd have a team like Florida in my bubble, and Florida may go 6-6 for all I know. But I got to be overly abundantly cautious with how big I make the bubble. So I would put those teams in there. All right, then you get to what I call the significant internal debate teams. And those are the teams that you don't think are going to win the title. Those are the teams, we could simulate the season 20 times and they wouldn't win the title. However, there's a non-zero chance that if everything lined up, and maybe all the big boys had critical injuries, and maybe they had a couple of playoff games where they were +3 or +4 in the turnover battle, it could theoretically happen. Those are your Missouris of the world, Tennessee, Penn State. I would even throw Auburn in there. You guys know I'm a little bit higher on Auburn's opportunity in year one under Alex Golesh than most people. But again, with a lot of these SEC and Big Ten teams, you're just talking about the talent roster. You're talking about teams that if they go 5-7, it wouldn't shock you. But also, that 5-7 is them losing a bunch of one-possession games, that if they're on the other side of, they go 9-3 or 10-2 and they get in the playoff. And if that kind of talent roster gets in the playoff, you got to be really careful. Miami did this last year. Miami, 2 losses in the regular season. They're left for dead. Okay, but they got in the playoff. What did they do once they got to the playoff? That's what talent does once you get it to the playoff. And then I think you have your outside looking in teams. Now, to be fair to me, it's February right now. And if I don't have to have this decided until August, I could afford to go through spring practice. I could afford to talk to all kinds of insiders, and I could talk to coaches, and we could wait to see what kind of injuries happen. So Washington, right now, wouldn't put them in my bubble. I could easily see adding them. I could say the same thing about Iowa or Brigham Young. What do we do with the ACC teams? Clemson, SMU, Louisville. Do we put those teams in? Do I put those teams in? Houston, a G5 team I'm really high on this year. But I said I wasn't going to have a G5 team, but they're not a G5 team anymore. Like, that's what you hear about Houston all the time. When I mention Houston, Jesse, we should start a counter on this. From now, February, until August, when we mention Houston, how many people in the comments will say, G5 team's not going to do anything, fully thinking Houston's still a G5 team? It's everywhere. It's all we see in our comment section. Like, people are totally unaware Houston joined the Big 12. And it didn't happen last year, guys. It happened a couple of years ago. So South Carolina, you got Dylan Stewart over there. You got Lenore Sellers over there. Theoretically, it could happen. But those are my outside looking in teams right now. So as far as I can tell, 4, 8, 12, 16, I got 20 teams really preliminarily in my bubble. Ideally, I would like to shave that down, but I don't know that I can. Remember, it's not about taking big risk here. We want to take calculated risk. Like it's a calculated risk to leave Iowa outside of your bubble. Yeah, they're probably not going to win the title. But here's the thing about probably. There's a reason that you say probably and not definitely. And I don't mean definitely with no consequences. In this world, in this game, when you say they definitely can't win the title, they better be close to 0% chance, or else you risk some very terrible things happening to you. This is a concept. This is a game we're going to work on. We're even working on the name, and we'll start to fine-tune it as the spring and summer goes on, and then we'll be ready to roll this thing out for the fall.